The nervous system is very primal. It just cares about pain, pleasure. And so it's like, well, if I feel anxious and I eat that cake, temporarily I'm going to feel better. I'm going to get a sugar rush, endorphins are going to hit my brain, oxytocin's going to go crazy. Like it's a good time for a little bit. But then, as we know, it's going to wear off. And then we're left with the anxiety, the overwhelm, the unworthiness once again.
Everybody to Confessions of a Binge Eater. So happy to land here with you, have you land here with me. And I'm going to bring you a great guest today that I think you'll really enjoy. You know, I don't have a lot of men on my show because I tend to resonate most with women. And yet, once in a while, I meet somebody that I feel like you could really enjoy, you know, and I love men, don't get me wrong. But this man has a really beautiful message that really I think will speak to your heart and your experience and just in your quest for learning how to heal from the inside out. So Joey Klein is a transformation and mastery expert. He's an author, speaker, and the founder and CEO of the Inner Matrix Systems, a personal mastery training system for high achievers. And he is also just a cool guy. Okay, so he started the Inner Matrix Systems in 2002, and he's trained over 84,000 individuals worldwide, including executives from Fortune 500 companies, entrepreneurs, and professional athletes, to really help them ensure their vision is not only enduring, but actually creates the fulfillment and impact they desire. And the conversation we have in this episode is so perfect for us as emotional eaters, as people who have an addictive habit that we want to really overcome and understand at a deeper level. So I think that's what this conversation will do for you. And yeah, it's just a nice interview that I'm excited to bring to you. Let's take a listen. Well, Joey Klein, welcome to Confessions of a Binge Eater. I'm so glad you're here.
It's awesome being here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you probably didn't expect you would be on a show called Confessions of a Binge Eater. Like, not totally your target market, but that's okay.
You know, you never know where you're gonna end up when you're looking at serving and contributing to people, right?
That's right. That's right. And we had an awesome conversation, a couple conversations. You know, we met at an event and spoke briefly and then had a longer conversation. And I like your vibe and I like the things that you're teaching. And I know they're useful for me personally. And of course, you know, my audience being binge eaters and emotional eaters and women really on a personal development journey and very successful in so many areas, but trying to figure out the food thing. I just thought it'd be really cool to have a conversation and see, you know, how we can just bring some of your beautiful philosophy into the fold of healing one's relationship with food. So thanks so much for coming on the show.
So good to be here. Yeah, and it's super fun meeting you, getting to know you a little bit and about your work. And yeah, it seems like you're just up to some really cool things with people and in a great way.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I wake up stoked. So every day. So yeah, so some of the things I really loved when I did hear you speak a month or so ago is just the whole idea of the inner journey and the inner game. You know, like I know that I was never going to heal my relationship with food. I was 50 pounds overweight, and diets were, it got to the point I'd gone up and down the scale so much that diets were off the table. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't work, you know, and the whole idea of controlling food seemed off to me. I'm like, we gotta go deeper with this thing. And I had a mentor, bless his heart, who close to 40 years ago said, Tricia, it's not about the food, and started to help me heal at a deeper level. And taught me so much that I bring into my work now that I'm so grateful for. And so that's what I heard from you. You know, you've been on a journey. You've been searching your soul and finding some really cool concepts that are helping you in your life. We were just talking about the visioning and whatnot, but will you kind of bring us back to your early days and how you got into the work that you do now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a very unconventional sort of journey, to personal development and to what I do today. As I shared at the seminar that we were at, I grew up in some pretty extenuating circumstances, and I know everybody's like, I got family drama, but I definitely had some major things going on, like alcoholism was very prevalent in my family, quite a bit of violence, things of that nature. A lot of family members who are dead or in prison, things of that nature, and I just remember, I fell into drugs and alcohol as a way of coping with the emotions that I was feeling, not knowing what else to do, and also just copying what I saw around me. And I remember it struck me like lightning one night where it was just like, man, if I keep living the way that I'm living and I stay in this environment that I'm in, I'm going to be dead in a year. Like it's very unlikely that I'm going to be around. And I remember without realizing it, I kind of set an intention and a pretty clear vision for myself that had nothing to do with the outside world initially. Like it was, hey, how do I find a sense of peace and fulfillment? And like, what do I do to be happy? Because I didn't know anybody in my life that I would say was happy, that was fulfilled, that was thriving. And so it wasn't like my career or what am I supposed to do for a living or making a bunch of money initially. It was really just how do I find a sense of peace and fulfillment? And I grew up in the 80s. And there was this, it's funny because I thought it was a great show growing up. And I rewatched one of these episodes recently and it's terrible, but it was called The Kung Fu Legend Continues, something like this.
Okay. I
And
never
I
saw it.
remember it like had these monks in it and like spiritual things happened and transformation happened in the mountains with monks. And my dad was like, hey, I'm going to the mountains. Would you like to come with me? And he was doing this like new age fair. And I was like, yes, that's where I'm going to find my path. And so, I went with him and I met my first mentor there. He's a keynote speaker and the things that he was, sharing made sense. And so I ended up being a living student with him, moving to Boulder, Colorado. Long story short, I ended up in India, with a sadhu, meditating 8 hours a day for months at a time, and ended up meeting a Taoist meditation master who, studying in the Shaolin Temple in China for 30 years, who trained me inside of Taoist meditation and mindfulness practices, Qigong. Met a world-renowned psychologist who took me under their wing, who then introduced me to a Harvard-trained neurologist who helped me understand sort of these inner training realities that I was doing with my mentors and the effects it had on the brain, and helped me create a system and curriculum out of it. And then before I knew it, I was being referred clients. My mentor said, if I'm going to train you, you have to teach. I had no desire to teach. I did not want to help people. I just wanted to study and figure myself out. And it was very, very quick. They were like, you have to share what we're sharing with you if we're going to keep teaching you. So it was an ultimatum for sure. And I was like, well, I want to learn, so I'm going to start teaching. Fast forward to about a year later, I had 98 people that I was working with one-on-one. I had a 200-person wait list. That led to weekends and seminars. And then before you knew it, I was, teaching 30. At my peak, I was doing 38 to 40 weekend seminars a year, Japan, Europe, United States, and it just kind of blew up.
Wow, that's an amazing journey. What was that time frame? How many years was that you just very beautifully condensed into a very into a few minutes?
Yeah. So from when I first started working with people, it took about a year and a half, almost 2 years, and I had a full practice. And then people started asking me like, hey, will you, put on a seminar or like a workshop so that we can bring our family, our friends, our colleagues, because you're filled, like at least share it with the group. And I'd never done anything like that before. And I was like, well, I'll try it because I'm kind of telling a lot of people the same thing. And so I've been teaching training now for about 22 years. This will be year 23 that I'm going into.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love it. Really cool. So, what would you say is just if you could also put in a few minutes, what would you say is your overarching philosophy that you teach?
I would say that if we look at any outcome or result that we have, whether it's financial, whether it has to do with body or health, whether it has to do with our relationships, that can be reverse engineered if we understand the mechanics of how to do that to our internal pattern dynamics in terms of emotion driving the mind to think, how that shows up in our nervous system and our unconscious, subconscious self. And there's this whole reality that is preceding every choice, decision, and action. And if we learn to gain access to those subconscious pattern dynamics and learn to retrain them, we can calibrate them to the outcomes, results, and changes we want to see in our life, which is the opposite of the way most people actually approach creating change. Like most people, if they want to be wealthier, they try to save money, or if they want to be healthier, they try to eat different, or they try to go exercise. And it's like they look at the action piece first as opposed to the reality that precedes action. So in my mind, 90% of the game is internal training and dynamics. 10% is the external mechanics and frameworks.
I love that. And I'm, again, so aligned with what you teach because it's been my experience. You know, my mentor said it's not about the food. So I had to start to learn what it was really about. And it was all inside, not not what's going on outside, which we can't control. So can we jump into that? Okay. Well, there's no doubt, you described your childhood, which is honestly probably very similar to a lot of people who struggle with food and weight. Our childhoods are just complete, with so much alcoholism. That is like big for us. We're protecting ourselves at an early age from alcoholism, from sexual abuse, from just really messed up messages about who we are and what we're capable of or not. And so maybe let's talk about sort of the foundation of how we got into the mess we got into around subconscious beliefs and like the early on stuff that laid the groundwork for our or the foundation for our getting off course.
Yeah, that's great for sure. Yeah, I can kind of share some personal things and then, also maybe give a framework because I think that when we understand how to start mapping this stuff for ourselves, it can be really helpful. I've worked everything that I teach today came from working with thousands of people one-on-one in the trenches. Like, hey, here's my problem, here's my challenge with alcoholism or food or, whatever it might be, financial struggles, etc., relationship challenges. And it's like, how do I solve for this? And it's like walking a person through step by step. How do we solve for that? And then if we find something that works and we've guided several hundred people through a process and it produces outcome, now it becomes a framework. Now it becomes something that we know is effective, right? And I share that because I think a lot of people are sharing theories today or literally creating courses on AI. And a lot of people don't know the difference in terms of like what's, sort of credentialized and what's good and what's questionable, right? So something I can say is like everything that I'm sharing has been tried and true, many times over the last couple decades. And what I think is when I think back to a pattern dynamic that got entrenched for me, it was helpful for me to understand how the unconscious gets trained. And so I remember I was 16 years old and my peer group, unfortunately, were individuals who were, they drank a lot and they did drugs and it was not a good peer group. Like it'd be the kids you want your kids not to hang out with. Those were my
Right.
friends. And I remember I was like 15, I was 15 years old because I just got my learner's permit and I was able to take my car out as a 68 Mustang that I spent the entire summer, working on and restoring. And the agreement was if I fix this thing up, I could have it as my first car. So I had it out for my first time by myself. And this is Kansas, Wichita, Kansas. So you could drive when you're 15 and had like a permit, so to speak. And I remember we were in the basement and the alcohol came out and it was vodka, like Smirnoff vodka. And everybody started taking shots. And it came to my turn, and they poured the shot for me. And I remember taking it. And like most people, when they had their first, alcohol, especially terrible vodka, I remember taking the shot and like wanting to throw up. It tasted so bad. But I remember I didn't want to be embarrassed in front of my friends. And so I clenched my stomach muscles so that I didn't throw up. And then I got through it and I thought, oh, thank God that's over. And then I remember all the high fiving and everybody's like, oh, great job and cheering and all this kind of stuff. And all of a sudden they were pouring more shots. And I was like, oh my God, you're telling me I have to do this again? This is the worst thing on the planet. And about 3 or 4 later, all of a sudden, it was like I got good at this, and there was no longer a vomit reflex, which was fascinating because everything about my body was saying, get rid of this, it's a poison. But my conscious mind just overrode that because I wanted to, have connection and acceptance from my friends, right?
Right.
And so what was interesting is, as we hear in some books, right, neurons that fire together, wire together. What I didn't realize was I entrenched some core patterns in my unconscious self, emotionally, and in my brain in this one evening where drinking from an emotional standpoint, alcohol meant connection and acceptance. Right
Yes.
after we did this, me and my friend drove home because I had a curfew, and he was in his car. I was in my car. He was driving a red Beretta, and he stops and he's like, let's race. And I said, oh, for sure. And so I didn't really know anything about driving. I just didn't want to lose. And I remember just flooring it and going as fast as I could through this neighborhood. And there was a car parked on the side of the road. Thank God there was nobody in it. But I didn't understand what to do. I got scared, froze up, and I hit this parked car head on going about 80 miles an hour. Head went
Mm.
through the windshield. The indentions of my knees were in the dashboard, bent the steering wheel 90 degrees, completely totaled the car I had worked on all year long. First
Wow.
time out, destroyed it. And the horn got stuck on. It was beeping and blaring. And I got out of the car. Luckily, I wasn't hurt.
Mm.
And
Amazing.
now all of a sudden, all the neighbors came out of their houses and saw this whole thing going down. Police showed up, paramedics showed up, had to tell my parents. It was, pretty terrible. But it's interesting because, losing this car was a really painful thing because it's like your first car and you worked so hard to get it. And my
Freedom.
parents are disappointed. And there's like you think there's a lot of pain associated to this thing. And it's like, oh, he'll never do that again. But if you rewind, this sense of like connection and acceptance got linked to alcohol and driving fast and wrecking cars. And so
Mm.
all of a sudden I kept drinking, kept doing it with my friends, and I totaled something like 9 vehicles by the time I was 20 years old.
Oh my
And so it
gosh.
set this like whole weird pattern dynamic in place. And what I didn't understand and what I didn't notice was whenever there was stress or anxiety or overwhelm or I was feeling lonely, there would be the impulse to drink or do drugs. And a lot of people think, oh, well, it's an addiction because of the chemicals and you feel better. But what I learned later on was it had nothing to do with the substances themselves. It had to do with what got wired emotionally in terms of linked inside the brain, neurons that fire together, wire together. Because what got wired for me was drinking, drugs, connection, and this sense of acceptance. And so, literally, as far as my nervous system and my sub and unconscious self was concerned, drinking meant acceptance and connection, even though it obviously didn't mean that practically. And so when I came to realize that, and I learned from mentors I studied with, et cetera, how to, rewire the nervous system, I was able to rewire this sense of acceptance and this sense of connection to training, to martial arts, to things that were truly healthy for me, internal training, things like this. And then I was able to wire, the fear of death literally to drinking and alcohol. And so that moment when I realized, man, if I keep living the way I'm living, I'm going to be dead in a year. It was after a 3-day binger, and I was pretty sure I died, or I came very close to it. And I remember thinking, like, this is devastating, right? Like my life is
Right.
going to end soon. And so it was funny because I didn't do it on purpose, but I rewired the brain to associate alcohol and drugs to death, right, or to devastation, to pain and suffering. And all of a sudden, I never wanted it again after that. It wasn't like I needed a process to quit. I just woke up the next day and went, I'm done. And then I never did it again. Right. And so I
But you
shared
didn't,
the,
but you didn't go through a process. Like you just started making all these connections like in a nanosecond.
yeah, I say I made a conscious acknowledgement unconsciously in that moment. Right. So today it's
Okay.
become a very conscious process because what I mean by conscious acknowledgement is until that moment, I used to say drinking is fun. And this is an adventure and we're having a good time and it's not a big deal. But in that moment, when I kind of pushed it too far and scared myself and had a different realization, I consciously said to myself, this is going to kill me. I'm destroying my life. I'm here to live for something more. And so it was a conscious acknowledgement that I did unconsciously, meaning I didn't understand that I was rewiring myself in that moment. All I knew was I can't do this anymore. And then I woke up the next day and everything changed. And so what that taught me was true transformation might take us a little bit to get there. We might need to train for a little bit to get to an inflection point where there is a absolute shift in reality. But transformation is truly an instantaneous moment where we rewire our brain, our unconscious self, that then sets us in a new direction and on a new trajectory.
Got it. Okay. I mean, I agree with that because I've experienced it, but in certain circumstances in my life, but then you created a conscious system for rewiring your brain after that and after trying like sort of reverse engineering what happened. Is that accurate?
Similar. So, like if anybody looks at a dynamic that they like to stop engaging, right? Say alcohol or eating sugar, right?
Sure.
It seems like we should have willpower to just go, I'm not going to eat this, and I'm going to eat that. But obviously that doesn't work, right? And so
Nope, nope, nope.
if we is and this may seem like oversimplifying it a little bit, but it's not truly, because it's like if we look at that moment where the urge is there for the drink or the urge is there for
The
the sugar,
candy.
the
Yeah.
candy, the food that we
Yeah.
the cake or whatever it is, or
Yeah.
same thing, the urge is there to potentially spend money, right, on stuff we don't need. If we pay attention to that moment where there's that urge, the reality is there's a strong emotion present, if that makes sense,
Yes.
right? And so in that moment, if we ask ourselves, oh, what am I feeling here? Then there's going to be something present. So like if I'm looking to sugar, a lot of times if we stop when the urge is there, right
Mm-hmm.
before we have the sugar, right before we take the drink, and we go, how do I feel? And we get quiet with ourselves, we start paying attention. That's the language of the subconscious. The language of the subconscious is emotion, it's not thoughts. And if we pay attention to what do we feel, number one, hey, where's my nervous system? Are we in a parasympathetic state or sympathetic state? Fight or flight, rest, digest, rejuvenate. When we're in a parasympathetic state, we're inside of critical thinking, creative thinking, intuition. When we get compromised and deregulated from a nervous system standpoint, we go into just fight or flight, and our and conscious thinking, right? Creative thinking, critical thinking just completely shuts down. And so now we're on autopilot essentially. We just eat the food, feel better. And so if in that moment we stop and we go, oh, am I in fight or flight, right? Fight, defend, or flee. Or am I in higher cognitive function? That's number one. And then number two is, how do I feel? Hey, and what we'll notice is like, oh, I want the food, I feel lonely. Oh, I want the food, I feel unworthy. I want the food, I feel sad right now. Or whoa, I feel really overwhelmed, I feel anxious. And the nervous system is very primal. It just cares about pain, pleasure. And so it's like, well, if I feel anxious and I eat that cake, temporarily I'm gonna feel better. I'm gonna get a sugar rush, endorphins are gonna hit my brain, oxytocin's gonna go crazy. Like it's a good time for a little bit. But then, as we know, it's gonna wear off, and then we're left with the anxiety, the overwhelm, the unworthiness once again.
Right.
Now, a
Yep.
lot of people don't realize that those emotions are even present before they go eat the food.
Truth.
They just
Yep.
feel uncomfortable, and there's an impulse to make the discomfort go away. And so, if we can learn to access that emotion, that's step one. How do I feel? Then, step two is shift the emotional state. Now, where a lot of traditional therapies take people is they go, okay, well, what do you feel? They go, well, why are you feeling this way? And they go searching in the past, and well, what happened to you, and what crazy things occurred in your past, and let's go seek to understand that in an attempt to rewire the emotion. But for what it does for a lot of people, it actually ingrains the very emotion that they want to get out of. And so, if we can learn to acknowledge that emotion and realize that we're leveraging the substance, whether the substance be alcohol or sugar or fatty foods or sometimes it's purchasing thing. It's not a substance. It's an activity that draws our attention away, or the screen would go scroll. If we can notice in that moment, wow, I feel this really deep sense of sadness or overwhelming anxiety, and we can learn to shift that state through self mechanisms, breathing, center, redirect the mind, etc. Now all of a sudden the desire for the food, the screen, the alcohol dissipates, goes away, and now we relink it to something else.
And that's done through thought. Like, are we are like, how do you consciously do that? Because I 100% agree with you. Like, there's always something, even if people are like, oh no, I just like chocolate. There's always something else going on. When it's a compulsion that I like got to do it now, there's always something that we're running from,
Mhm.
or trying to avoid. It's just that we're used to thinking about the food. Like, I want chocolate. No, no, no. It's the pizza's there. I sure would like to have a piece. And that's it. There's no conscious
Yeah.
awareness of what else might be going on, but that can be learned, right? Like, it's a practice, like taking a look, what's actually going on. But in terms of hooking it up to something else, what is that like? How does that
Yeah.
happen?
So I love what you said there. It's a skill. And I think that's the thing a lot of people don't think about when it comes
Right.
to emotions, mental dynamics, etc. And so if we look at it as a skill, there are competencies that we want to develop. Everybody can develop it. It's just a matter of training and dedicating a little bit of time consistently over time, doing the right strategies, the right techniques, the right practices. And so if we look at emotional competency, we want to, number one, it's about developing awareness and sensitivity. So just because we feel things doesn't mean I'm aware of what I'm feeling. Matter of fact, 99% of human beings cannot tell you what they feel in the moment that they're experiencing it. It's something we have to develop. It's a skill we have to hone. And so it's like once we can hone that, we know we have awareness sensitivity. Now we want to develop three core competencies, right? Competency number one is okay. Now that I'm aware, I feel say anxious. Hey, can I feel this anxiety and take great action despite how I feel? Right. So it's not like we're going to be able to just shift the way we feel all the time, but we can definitely develop a form of resiliency where I feel anxious, I feel lonely. I'm not going to take the action that impulse wants me to take. I can still take great action despite how I feel. It's kind of like I wake up in the morning, I don't want to work out. I can get myself to go to the gym despite not feeling awesome. Resilience competency number two is hey, I'm aware that I'm feeling anxious, overwhelmed, lonely, whatever it may be. And I can leverage my nervous system by way of primarily relaxation technique, breath technique, in combination with focus strategies, right? Mindset training, where I can turn off the fear based state. I can shut it down. I can deactivate the emotion and the feeling. The benefit to that deactivation is the impulse or the desire for the behavior goes away. The desire for the food diminishes. The desire for the alcohol or the drugs goes away. As soon as we can deactivate the emotion, we also dissolve the desire, right? That impulse. Uh, in the same vein, core competency is hey, can I activate a love based state? So not only can I shut off fear based state, can I activate joy? Can I activate passion? Can I activate inspiration and feel those in that present moment? And so that would be the second form of emotional resiliency. And then the third form of emotional resiliency is like what I experienced on my trip yesterday. I just got back from Dallas, and I was coming back from a friend's house, and we got up to the runway. The plane left, and we were about to take off, and they're like, "Hey, sorry, we got to go back to the, to the, the what do you call it, the jetway or whatever, because we loaded the wrong luggage on the plane. We got to switch the luggage out."
Oh no.
So they go all the way back to the jetway and they're changing out this stuff. And then the speaker comes on and goes, "Sorry, everybody, we're going to have to get off the plane. As we notice, we have a flat tire. We got to change the tire." And
Oh
so
my gosh.
we all get off the plane. People are losing their mind, as people do, because now we're about 2 hours late. People have been sitting on the plane, on the runway and the jetway, and all the things. And I'm sitting there just kind of like relaxed, grateful for my training. And I'm like, man, I'm gonna go find some fruit. I have a little bit of time. I'm gonna go find my fruit. I found some watermelon. I found an orange. I was like, make the best of it, kind of thing. Called some friends. I had a great time, and I watched everybody was just losing their mind, right?
Yeah.
So the third form of emotional resiliency is, can I maintain a state of peace or joy or inspiration despite circumstance? Like the,
Hmm.
the shit hits the fan in my life, challenges show up. The more resilience I have emotionally in terms of maintaining love-based state, the more fulfilled I'm going to be, the stronger I am to manage micro decisions like the food I eat and, am I going to work out today or not, and so on and so forth. And so if we look at, hey, let's train competency, it starts with awareness and sensitivity, which My,
Yeah.
my martial arts mentor used to say, Joey, you're always going to be the hardest person for you to see. It's always going to be hardest to see yourself. So this is true for all of us. Like we can look at our friend and our children and our parents, and we're like, man, you're sad, pissed off, like you're clearly not okay. And they're like, no, I'm fine. What are you talking about? Everything's good. Like they don't necessarily mean to be defensive. They may just actually not know where they are. It's always so much
Right.
easier to see others. And
Yeah.
so it's like, it starts with awareness and sensitivity. And we should, I still work to become more aware and sensitive to myself after 20
Yeah.
years of doing this, right? It's a never ending journey. And then it's those three core competencies that give us the ability to rewire and leverage, right? Number one, hey, I feel uncomfortable. I can take great action despite the emotional discomfort. I can turn off fear based states. I can turn on love based states, turn off painful states, turn on pleasurable states, and then train those love based states to be more resilient so that they're not defined by the world, circumstances, and life as it happens.
I love that. And the third was the deactivation. Which level was that?
So I'd say that would be two. So like
Two?
the
Okay.
foundation, it all starts with awareness, sensitivity. Because if I'm going for, chocolate is my thing. Like if I go to the cabinet and I'm like, man, I really want chocolate. I know I probably don't want chocolate. I know there's something going on, right? Because it's always
Yeah.
toward the end of the day and it's
Yep.
always at like 7 p.m. And I start thinking about the day and I start sort of maybe feeling a little anxious about stuff I need to get done. And then all of
Yep.
a sudden it's like anxiety chocolate. Like that's literally how it works. And so what I've learned is to stop. Like when I notice the urge for chocolate, I go, what am I feeling? Oh, I feel anxious. So I have awareness and sensitivity where I am, right?
Yep.
So emotional resilience, number one, hey, I feel that anxiety. I'm not going to eat the chocolate. I'm going to watch a
Yep.
show. I'm going to sit here with my
It
fiance. I'm going to go get a glass of water. Even though I feel anxious, I'm not going to pull the lever called chocolate. So that's like resilience
yeah.
one.
It's not about
Resilience,
the food.
exactly. Resilience two is I'm aware I'm anxious. So I'm gonna relax on the couch. I'm going to do my four-sided breathing. I'm going to do box breathing. I'm going to center the nervous system. Oh, the anxiety's gone. I'm going to refocus the mind. And now I no longer feel anxious. And by the way, I no longer feel the desire or the urge for the sugar, right?
Yeah.
And then resilience number three, oh, I feel inspired. Now I can hold that inspiration the rest of the evening and it gets stronger throughout the evening. The better and better I get at feeling those love based states. And what a lot of people don't realize from a neurological reality, you're either going to get really good at feeling love based states or you're going to be really, really good at feeling fear based states, but you can't be good at feeling both because
Okay.
the brain structure forms around what we feel. So if we
Yeah.
feel anxious every day and we don't realize it, but we feel anxious every day, our amygdala gets overreactive, our brain stems get larger, our prefrontal cortex gets smaller. And then opposite on the flip side, if we feel joy more of the time, our prefrontal cortex behind our forehead gets bigger, our amygdala and limbic system become less reactive, our brain stem gets smaller. And so like when we look at the MRIs of people's brains, and they first did this with monks in the early 2000s, where they looked at the brains of Tibetan monks and they noticed the brain structure was very different than people from, everyday walks of life. And what they realized was it really came down to the core emotion they felt the majority of the time actually formed the brain. And when we think about neuroscience, this makes sense because if I feel angry, adrenaline shoots through my body, through the adrenals, cortisol goes up, right? Those feel good hormones are not created as much. And so I'm asking different regions of my brain to function and operate. When I feel joy and I feel optimism, I produce no cortisol and that settles down. There's no adrenaline shooting through my body. All of a sudden, oxytocin is produced more. We produce more dopamine. And so the regions that literally are the feel good regions of the brain they get better at doing that job. And so all of a sudden, we kind of, if we do the right training, we can form our brain to actually be more resilient and hold love based states as opposed to fear based states. And so it's like, which lever are we activating more of the time? And then that also gives us greater leverage over our own choices, decisions, actions, and behavior.
I love that. And back to the conversation about being a skill that we practice and develop because it doesn't come naturally to most humans, right? Like we can fall down that rabbit hole of the negative emotions so easily and get trapped there versus what I love what you're saying, cultivating the love-based state, and practicing that and getting to that. one question I have, because I find that as emotional eaters, it is easy to get stuck in the fear-based state. Like fear is, I think for emotional eaters, super easy to flip to or just fall into. I mean, I almost feel like more than your average person. It's just
Hmm.
we tend to be wired towards anxiety.
Yeah.
And what I know that people sometimes might hear this and think, oh, okay, but then they're sort of like slathering the love based over the fear based. So it's sort of like, it's almost like we're just sort of doing it in a superficial way when you still have this
Hmm.
current of anger and resentment and
Yeah.
fear. And you're like, oh, but oh, they mean well. And oh, everything's going to work out. God's in charge. But like we had to
Yeah.
clear, right? We got to clear that current, that undercurrent
Hmm.
of the negative emotions. And a lot of times what's helped me to do that is writing, like just dumping on paper the negative
Hmm.
stuff, because then it's not rattling around in my brain or in my heart. It's like it's out of me, and then it leaves space for like the natural filling up of that love-based state.
Hmm.
Do you recommend writing, or do you have your own kind of hack for that? So we're not being phony, basically, and
Yeah. Yeah.
pretending we're
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah, I think like in some cases like writing or journaling, I think it's person dependent. So like for you or for a lot of people, it's like when we write and we journal, it kind of gets our thoughts outside of ourselves so we can see it. And
Yeah,
oftentimes what happens in the observation of what we wrote down is we almost disprove it and go, oh, that's not me. That's not who I am. I don't need to do that. So it's not
exactly.
necessarily the act of the journaling, I think sometimes that's really effective. It's more that moment of awareness where we have some distance from the thoughts and we go, it's
Yes.
not who I am, which then can activate a emotional shift. People who aren't journalers, I find that that doesn't necessarily work, but for a lot of people it does. So like if that's a tool and it's helpful, they should definitely do that, right? The way I explain it to people is number one, let's start creating a different relationship to emotion entirely. So like in our language, like for me, I don't look at any emotion as positive or negative. I don't look at any emotion as good or bad. It's just more neurological or matter of fact. It's like, hey, these emotions over here, based on fight or flight system and the nervous system's activated, hey, those are fear based states. They're not good or bad. They have a place. They can be beneficial and they can also be destructive. And then, same thing with
Right.
love based states. Like, they can be beneficial. They can also be destructive. Like, every person just about that I've talked with or helped couples work through, like an affair, it wasn't depression or unworthiness that usually preceded the affair. It was, oh, I was so in love with them. That's what they'll tell me. And it's like, well, that feeling of love and connection and being desired got you in a lot of trouble, didn't it? Right. So love-based states can kind of get us in as much trouble as fear-based states. So one isn't good or bad. It's how are they gotten wired and what are they motivating? Right. And so to your point though, it's not about positive thinking. A lot of people, they go, oh, if I can just think well, it'll cover up the emotion, it'll go away. As I always say, like we create from where we actually are. And so if I feel overwhelmed or I feel angry or I feel resentment, but I'm thinking nice things, the thinking nice things doesn't override the emotion. The emotion's still going to dictate your choice, decision, your action. And it's also dictating how your nervous system's actually functioning. You're still in a stress state. And so
Right.
it's not about, rose-colored glasses or positive thinking. Matter of fact, positive thinking does not change how we feel. This is a misnomer. I find that people believe that they can shift how they feel through the mind. But if we look at where emotions were created, it doesn't work that way. Meaning, our first 2 years of life, we had little wins over last night. It's my very good friend, my assistant. She now runs the office, a portion of the office for me. She's been staying with me 14 years. She now has a daughter. Lil Wins has just turned 3. For the first 2 years of her life, when we would babysit her and she would hang out, it was all emotion. It was just raw emotion because there's no language. It's not until the age of 4 or 5 where we really articulate language well. In order to have thought, we need to have a foundation of language. In the absence of language, there is no thought. Now we are just emotion and sensation. So if we think
Mm,
when we were in the womb of our mother, 6 months old, a year old, 2 years old, those first 5 years of life, primary communication is emotional communication. It's emotional imprint, and then the body sensation, hot, cold, pain, pleasure, etc. Then later we superimpose thought over the emotion. And so from a pattern dynamic, that's which actually dictates behavior, choice, decision, action. It's actually first is always emotion, is the first form of action. And then where is my nervous system, sensation? Then thinking occurs, now choices happen, now action is taken. And so it's kind of like if I want to shift the action and the outcome, right, I got to get to the root. And the root is always going to be anchored in what we actually feel, emotion, and where is our nervous system, sensation. If we learn to become aware of and sensitive to those two mechanisms, now we can gain leverage on ourselves to redefine behavior on our terms.
Oh, that's awesome, Joey. I love that. Thanks for laying that out. That was so clear and really beautiful. And it helps to highlight sort of how we got into this mess, right? Like it starts, it's because we have to reverse engineer it, right? Let's go back to the emotions and the nervous system, right? That's going to be an important place to go and not just in the thought, because we're so often people are trying to think their way out of it and nothing's happening, right? If I
Yeah.
just know more, if I just understand more, I can
Mhm.
change.
Yeah. If I know better, it'll be better. And it's like, it doesn't work that way.
No. Awesome stuff. I love it. Thank you for coming on and taking time out of your day. Tell us how people can get a hold of you, learn more about you, and just follow you, study with you, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think my team put together a special offer just for your peeps. Uh,
Wonderful.
so I believe usually people pay $1,000 for a training. We call it the pattern fix. And so what we do in this training is one of my trainers will take a person basically through the process that we just talked about. Hey, name a space in life you want to see change or transform, relationship, money, career, health, and then, what's that challenge point? And then we'll give them a set of tactics, tools to go into the unconscious, be able to see the pattern that's driving, and then give a framework for how to rewire it, how to shift it, how to change it relative to the new action or outcome that they want to create. Usually it's $1,000. We're just going to give it to all your people complimentary. If they just go to joeyklein.com / confession of binge eater.
Confessions,
.com.
plural of a binge eater
Confession,
with
plural.
hyphen. I see it now in my notes.
You got
Hyphen.
it.
We'll put this in the show notes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. So if they just click on that, it'll take them to the
Okay.
landing page. They just fill it out, and we'll get them all set up with that training. We'll send them a free book of the Inner Matrix and Relationship Alchemy. We'll just shoot it to their address for free, complimentary. And then they can learn the science and some tactics through those books, things of that nature. joeyklein.com is my website. And then the real Joey Klein on Instagram. They can DM me, continue to get education there as well.
Awesome. Thanks for that gift. And that will be in the show notes. Everybody, just click that link and take it where it goes. So thanks, Joey. It's been such a pleasure. I love, again, hearing you, learning from you, and you brought a great message today. So thank you for that.
Yeah, this was super fun. Thanks so much for having me. And yeah, let's stay connected.
You bet. Thanks, everybody. See you on the next show. If you're ready to get off the dieting roller coaster ride and finally make peace with food and with your body, talk to a Heal Your Hunger mentor about what steps you need to take based on your own history with food and weight. Go to healyourhunger.com and register for an emotional eating breakthrough session and see how fast you can experience real change. It's a complimentary evaluation, but there are limited spots available. So go to healyourhunger.com and register to speak with a mentor today.